Support Pro Play Games on Patreon.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy Yeehaw Yadam here today on the PPG channel doing a deck profile for Robert Lucci. So we're going to be showing a deck profile here on this channel, but I just want to let you guys know that if you want to go ahead and see more content regarding this leader and some gameplay, we're going to be going and putting that over onto our Patreon, where you guys can go ahead and see some more excellent One Piece content. So starting off with the leader, I think he's really interesting in terms of what it gives black. Gives it a little bit more versatility, gives it the ability to play for tempo and for board control, which even though it did have very powerful cards that allowed it to do so in the form of destruction via the Navy Admirals, it didn't really have a way to keep up with the board sometimes because of the leader ability. Smoker is not a bad leader by any means, but it just didn't have that oomph that it needed to kind of keep up. It didn't have that catch-up mechanic the deck kind of requires to keep up with the fast pace of our format. Lucci is also really cool because if your opponent's ever at 0 life, they can't really hide behind blockers because of his leader ability, which is also very interesting. He has that Eustace Kid-like effect where if you get them too low, you can go ahead and make sure the game closes out with the leader by himself. So off to the deck profile, and let's get right to it. We're going to be doing a heavy Navy package, and when you're doing a heavy Navy package, you're mostly being facilitated by this guy right here. So brand new is a brand new card from the set 3 that is finally a searcher for black. Now it isn't a Nami by any means, because it doesn't search up to 5. It kind of looks at the top 3 cards of the deck and then trashes the rest, right? Which is kind of okay. It works for black because you do have necessarily the trashing mechanics from the CP9 engine that you can go ahead and use and facilitate with these cards. But at the same time, not looking at the top 5 makes it so that it doesn't always hit. But with a heavy Navy package, you should always hit, right? You just won't hit the ones that you want to every single time. But brand new, excellent card for black, something that they really needed. He's a little bit bigger than Nami as a 2-3 instead of a 1-2 stat line. And it just kind of allows you to find those very powerful Navy cards. Then we're going to start off with the 2K counters. 4 of Sudu, a 4 of Garp, and a 2 of Tashigi, right? So we played 10 2K counters here. These are all of the better ones if you want to think about it that way. The only one that I may consider switching up is the Monkey D Garp playing in the form of Tashigi, because even though Garp is very powerful at keeping the board presence, the deck kind of naturally does that with cards like Brand New and Fukuru and things of those nature. So you don't really need to ever field the Monkey D Garp because this leader doesn't really have any cost reduction mechanics that Smoker had or Garp. It's just really pretty, so for that I think they wanted to go ahead and play 4. But Sudu and Tashigi are probably just the better versions of the black 2Ks because you just get that effect immediately. It's just like an Otama for black, so it's definitely one of the better options that we have. Very simple 2K lineup. I know 10 seems like a low amount, but with a heavy blocker count you can facilitate these small 2K counter packages. And then speaking of small 2Ks, and we have a lot of uncounterable, the Admirals do make their comeback in this set with a package of roughly 7 Admirals. So we're going to be playing a 4-4-3, and the reason we play 3 of the Sakazuki is because we play Monkey D Garp, which does something very akin to Sakazuki. The only reason sometimes you might want Garp over Sakazuki is because the fact that Garp is if you can defend it, it can continuously do Sakazuki's effect every single turn. The fact that you can rest the Garp is also pretty interesting because that forces your opponent to swing into it, making your leader an effective 6K leader, which is a very tricky little situation. Turning your leader into a Whitebeard for a turn isn't too bad. It also just facilitates Robert Lucci's destruction effect. So if you can play this card, discard a card, like you swing with Lucci, trigger the effect of Garp, pop something, you can go ahead and restand the Lucci and swing again. And if you can do that when you untap your Dawn, you have all your Dawn available, you can go ahead and attach more to Lucci to make it just a little bit more formidable in that sense. Sakazuki does have the on-play effect, which doesn't synergize as well with Lucci, and that's why Garp is here to be in its place. Maybe you want to go ahead and play more Garp than Sakazuki, but this is just a ratio that we're starting off with right now. He's also Navy, so all of these cards are, again, searchable by Brand New. And then for our top end, so those are our like mid-range Navy Admirals. Then we've got now access to these big lads, and these big lads are pretty darn good. We have Fujitora joining the mix, as well as still playing a 2 amount of the 10-drop Kuzan. 10-drop Kuzan still a really strong card. It's a card that, anytime you play a 10-drop, it should have a very solid effect. And I'll get to my complaining of Whitebeard in 1 second, but let's go with Isho. So Fujitora, super powerful, and the reason why it's super powerful is because the deck to beat is still Edward Newgate. That deck is just going to be a plague on us for whenever Bandai decides to really kill the deck. But until then, Fujitora is there to kind of just rip 2 cards out of the hand. It is a card that Red in general has a tough time playing around because all their cards are recruiters. Most of the cards they play, Nami, Buggy, Izo, Curly D, you know, just named 4, and they play the Whitebeard Pirates or whatever. They have infinite searchers, so each card kind of replaces itself. They end up taking all the life, so if you're hitting them aggressively, their hands become pretty darn big. Once their hand comes pretty darn big, Fujitora comes down and makes sure that it kind of like equalizes the game state, and if you've been able to keep a good mid game with your other mid-range Navy Admirals, then you should be in a pretty solid spot. This coming down on Whitebeard is a must, so basically in that matchup you're brand newing for this as much as you can. Kuzan is a card that you can just pitch as fodder, because even if they do summon the 9-drop, Fujitora should be able to handle it alongside your other very powerful cards. 10-drop is still pretty good because the 10-drop in the black matchup is kind of the winner, because of the fact that if you can stick the Kuzan onto your opponent, you basically become the victor. It's very tough for them to go ahead and stick characters, because even though black has cards that say cannot be KO'd, they don't got infinite of those. So as long as you can go ahead and remove the cards that can be KO'd, they're in a tough spot. So that's going to be rounding off most of the Navy package. The final cards in the Navy package are just going to be a 2 of Shockwave. Again, all of these cards are entirely searchable, so a good 40% of our deck, no, not a little bit more, maybe like 60% of our deck is just found with brand new, which is really, really nice. So even though it only looks at 3, the probability that you whiff is very, very darn low. And just to finish off the deck, we have a small CP9 package. Now, the CP9 package is really, really strong, mostly because it just lets you add very powerful characters into your deck in the form of Fukuru, another cannot be KO'd blocker that just kind of is there to tell Red to go screw themselves, which fair enough. You know, Marco is a very powerful card, and in general, their destruction effects are a little bit overtuned. So Fukuru can just be there, and it's a very sticky blocker that always states, I choose when to block, as opposed to you removing my blocker, which is really, really nice. And only black has that ability at this time with Fukuru and Borzolino. So because of Fukuru, we do end up playing a small CP9 engine. And when you do play a CP9 engine, you have to make space for Khalifa, because Khalifa is another cost reduction effect that in conjunction with your other cards is really darn good. Not only that, but Khalifa also cycles your hand, and whenever you get to filter your hand in a deck like this that plays a lot of bricks, you're in a really solid spot. Not only that, but once again, if you combo that off with Bluno himself, Bluno can go ahead and is just another really fantastic card. One of my favorite cards from the set, because it just allows you to recruit so much, right? And it's a really tricky card because in some situations, and now these situations, they exist, but it's also kind of like a fantasy land. But there is a universe where you activate Bluno's effect, you block with Bluno, you summon the Khalifa, Khalifa filters your hand, you reduce a card's cost, and then you shockwave it because it is being reduced on your opponent's turn, and then you can shockwave up to, I think this reduces by 2, a 5 cost card, which kind of cool. I don't know, will it happen? Who knows? But I think that whole little combo is really darn nice, and the fact that it is again another sticky black card is very, very good. This doesn't have to be sticky, because whether it comes onto the board or not, you want it for its on play, but these cards being ever so sticky is pretty darn good. And then lastly, we have Kaku, which is just there as more just tempo removal and things of that nature. It's also a very beautiful card that's at a very reasonable price, so definitely adding that card to the deck. Just the only issue with Kaku that I find in this version is that you might not have enough CP9 to facilitate it, and but other than that, you can always pitch it for a 1k counter. The only thing I'm really worried about not playing in this deck is an Air Door. I think Air Door is just a very powerful card, but with such a huge Navy engine, it might not even be necessary. Now, like I said, this is a very different take on what we've seen from Robert Lucci. We mostly see a heavy CP9 engine with a small Navy engine. This is more Navy focused, and let's see if that ends up working out for us. So if you guys want to go see how this deck performs, go check out our Patreon for some more gameplay content and commentary, and I'll see you there, guys. Later.